I found out something you should know. In the end, benefit you.
You did well, Lord Larys.
So, after 8 episodes of plot building and watching a man slowly die in front of our eyes, Episode 9 escalated the conflict tenfold, with the Green faction striking the first blow in the race for the throne. In this video, we will go over all the tiny details you might have missed amongst the action, and what exactly it all means. And yes, there will be major spoilers for Episode 9.
Beware the beast beneath the boards. There is a beast beneath the boards.
As we've explained before, the House of the Dragon opening credits is a constantly shifting Targaryen family tree, with the flow of blood telling us who is dead and who is alive in the show. What makes this episode different is that it is the first time that the opening credits have shown unique symbols for Alicent, Aegon, Aemond, and Helaena. Alicent's symbol is the crest of House Hightower, with a 7-pointed star showing her affiliation with her faith. Aegon's symbol is that of a dragon egg and a woman. Helena's is a spider, while Aemond's is a sapphire. But one line you might have missed is to Alicent and Viserys' 4th child. Yes, that's right, they had another one without you even realizing it. Showrunner Ryan Condal said that Viserys' 4th child, Daemon, would not work in a first season, but the prince who is living off screen with Otto's brother in Old Town will presumably have a part to play down the line. So in the last video, we were speculating on what Helena's ominous prophecy meant of the beast beneath the floorboards, a line she says once again in episode 9. Now, we hate to say it, but we were basically wrong with all our guesses, and it turned out the obvious meaning was the right answer, as it was a reference to the dragon beneath the floorboards at Aegon's coronation. In the closing moments of the episode, Rhaenys and her dragon Meleys bust out under the floorboards and stare down Alicent and Aegon, threatening to kill them all and end the conflict before it even gets going, but instead decides to fly off, as she seemingly has a soft spot for Alicent. This scene is important, however, as it shows once again that Helaena is spot on in her predictions. Speaking of which, did anyone catch the other quick prophecy she made in the episode? As she watches her newly introduced children play with their toys, she utters the line,
One possesses a thing, the other will take it away.
"If one possesses a thing, the other will take it away." Now, this is of course referring to the children playing, but it also has a double meaning. Now, we can't get into specifics as that will be spoilers, but you can pretty much guarantee that line essentially summarizes the upcoming carousel of throne sitters and the Dance of the Dragons. In episode 9, we were introduced to Aegon's children through marriage, but we were also introduced to one of his illegitimate children too, down in Flea Bottom, which, as the twins speculate, is likely one of many. Now, all of this is very similar to Robert Baratheon in Game of Thrones, and the likes of his Gendry. However, this is actually likely setting up a relatively important character in the book, and this child is likely Gaemon Palehair. Now again, we won't go into specifics as that would be spoilers, but in the book it is revealed that Gaemon is the son of Aegon II, and a woman named Essie who worked in a brothel in King's Landing. Gaemon is raised in said brothel as if he were in fact the next in line, and does actually draw a cult following of supporters, but that's as far as we will go because, as I said, spoilers. As you know, Episode 9 focuses on the Greens' mad rush to secure Aegon as king and cement their power after the death of Viserys, a plan they had been working on for some time, although there is still some infighting between Alicent and Otto in the Green faction. Anyway, although they do their best to keep Viserys' death a secret, something which they do over the course of several days while the corpse rots away in the book, the White Worm learns about the death of the king and abducts Aegon while the Greens have a literal search for the heir to the throne. But how exactly did the White Worm learn about Viserys' death? Well, it was likely the candles that Talia lit and placed in the window to inform the White Worm from afar. This is seemingly a nod to Game of Thrones, with Sansa using the same system to ask Brienne for help. Speaking of the White Worm though, while it isn't confirmed, her building being set on fire was likely performed by Larys on the orders of Otto in order to stop her from getting one over on the hand again down the line. But we will have to wait and see if that was the case and if the White Worm managed to get out of there alive. I do wonder though if Otto paid Larys the same way Alicent does. While House of the Dragon is a spin-off of Game of Thrones, did anyone catch the reference to another Game of Thrones spin-off? When looking for Aegon, Aemond mentions that he could have boarded a ship to Yi Ti. Yi Ti is located in Essos, to the east of Korth, and inspired by the real-world Imperial China. Yi Ti is a vast empire, ruled over by leaders who are known as God Emperors, and is one of the largest and oldest nations in the known world. It is also the setting of an upcoming animated series, although at the moment very little is known about the project. Another subtle reference, actually 2 of them, comes in the late-night small council meeting to go over the upcoming struggle for power and Aegon's succession. The first is a reference to the southern nation of Dorne, with Tywin Lannister asking, was Dorne invaded, as he speculates why the meeting is so urgent. This is a subtle reminder that at this point in history, Dorne isn't part of the Seven Kingdoms. Dorne actually resisted Aegon the Conqueror's invasion, and didn't become conquered and officially part of the Seven Kingdoms until 187 AC, with House of the Dragon taking place over 50 years earlier. Another location referenced in the meeting is is that of the Baratheon home of Storm's End, which is conveyed to be an important seat for both the Greens and Blacks. This is actually set up for an upcoming plotline which ends with an epic dragon battle, but saying anything more would be major spoilers, so again, we will end here. Another important moment in the meeting is when Sir Harrold Westerling casts down his white cloak and leaves his role as Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, as he is shocked and horrified by the events of that meeting, and in particular the behavior of fellow member of the Kingsguard Criston and his severe rage problem. Now, to be honest, his future is a bit of an enigma. While he did allude to the fact that he would side with the Blacks, in the book, Harrold Westerling has been long dead, dying before Rhaenyra and Laenor got married, so it is rather unclear what the future holds for the character. Also, his defiance in going to kill Rhaenyra in Dragonstone is a nice callback to the first episode, where he is sworn in as her protector, with him being a man of his word. Unlike Criston, always mad about something, Cole. Speaking of Sir Criston and his never-ending angst, once again, he kills a character in pointless and brutal fashion. This time murdering Lyman Beesbury by smashing his head down onto one of the balls used by the small council. Now in the book, Beesbury dies at a similar point, but there are multiple conflicting accounts of what happened. One claims he was sent to the Black Cells and died there, another that Criston Cole slit his throat, while a third says Criston threw him out a window onto spikes below. Now while it wasn't quite as brutal as the third option in the show, it was definitely a bloody start for the first major death in the dance, with Lord Caswell, the only person to welcome Rhaenyra and Daemon in episode 8, being the second. You may have noticed during Aegon's coronation, a few of the banners include a gold dragon on black, rather than the typical red of House Targaryen. This is because it's Aegon's personal sigil, with the gold in honor of his own golden dragon, Sunfire, who is said to be the most beautiful in the world. There is also a deeper purpose to this, though. Having different banners will allow the factions to know who they're attacking when the eventual war begins. For her part, Rhaenyra, if it follows the book, will use the House Targaryen dragon quartered with the falcon of House Aaron and the seahorse of House Valerian for her sigil. Speaking of the coronation though, Aegon is fitted with the crown and sword of his namesake Aegon the Conqueror in order to legitimize his claim for the throne. Now both of these items, which are made from Valyrian steel, are missing during Game of Thrones, but they are very important during the events of the dance. Aegon is actually the first king to wear the crown since Maegor the Cruel, while the sword was wielded by one of the most popular monarchs in Game of Thrones history, King Jaehaerys. All of this again is to associate Aegon II with his ancestors, to showcase him as the better choice. But while we were all focusing on one crown, there is another crown that will also hold a great level of importance, Viserys' crown. In the episode, we see his crown laid on his body, presumably set for the funeral pyre, but we importantly never see it be destroyed. That's because in the book, it is smuggled out of King's Landing, and placed in the hands of, well, spoilers. There have been multiple references and dialogue to Game of Thrones throughout the series, and episode 9 was no different, giving us various callbacks to the show. The White Worm's line of, "There is no power but what the people allow you to take," is reminiscent of Varys' line,
"Power resides where men believe it resides."
While Larys also refers to spiders in the White Worm, which was Varys' nickname in Game of Thrones. While Alicent's line to Otto of, "None of this is a game," is a stark contrast, pun intended, to Game of Thrones Season 1, where Cersei Lannister tells Ned Stark, "When you play the Game of Thrones, you win or you die." One of the main inciting incidents of the episode is Alicent misinterpreting Varys' meaning behind the prophecy of ice and fire, thinking he meant he wanted to see Aegon on the throne. Of course, he didn't mean this at all, and was referring to the prince that was promised, aka Jon Snow, over 100 years later, but Alicent takes this and runs with it to give her son a legitimate reason to rule. However, this is a major deviation from the books, as firstly, the Song of Ice and Fire wasn't mentioned by Viserys, and secondly, Alicent's motive was much more plain. She believed Aegon's claim to be stronger, or more self-serving, than Rhaenyra's. Now, while the Bells episode was one of the best-looking episodes in Game of Thrones history, it was also one of the most controversial, as Daenerys lays waste to the city of King's Landing, despite the bells ringing out for surrender. However, it has never been established in Game of Thrones lore that the ringing of the bells means that, but House of the Dragon does use them correctly to signify the death of a monarch. As Viserys once said, "I've always hated the bells. They ring for horror, a dead king, a city under siege." Speaking of Dany though, one of her catchphrases in the later seasons of Game of Thrones was to tell Jon Snow to bend the knee every 5 minutes, and this is seemingly referenced in House of the Dragon, with bend the knee being said multiple times, with one reference saying that Rhaenyra would never bend the knee to Aegon. And finally, as Aemon searches for his brother, he not so subtly alludes that he wouldn't be that concerned if they never find his brother, so he could take over as next in line. The only thing is he isn't the next in line. He has seemingly forgotten that Aegon and Helaena have had children, making them next in line. To be fair, they were only on screen for a minute, but let's face it, he's not winning the Uncle of the Year award. Daemon already won that. And that's everything you missed in episode 9. What did you think of the episode? Are you pumped for the season finale? Sound off in the comments below.